Well, hello and welcome to my humble abode that I'm currently in the process of moving away from. So we're sitting on the floor, you're propped up on some boxes, and we're about to dig into some Q2 2019 data. This data was pretty exciting to go through. Every time I comb through the data, I have realizations above and beyond what is just like available in the spreadsheets, which is why I decided to do these videos as like a little supplement, like, hey, check out this, did you key in on that? Because I think it really helps those of you who are looking for some extra insights into a lot of these projects, especially as potential investments. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the top 25, because every single quarter I evaluate these based on the projects that are in the top 25 market cap on coinmarketcap.com. And the particular date that I pulled these was June the 16th of 2019. So June the 16th. So that being said, there's a few projects from the first quarter that got kicked out of the top 25, and there's a few projects from the first quarter that were not currently present in the top 25 that got added. So as far as the projects that we are welcoming to the top 25 market cap, got my show notes with me, we have Cosmos Atoms, or Cosmos Atom, I don't think it's a plural pronunciation. But anyways, they got released in March. So Cosmos is really new. Cosmos was getting released as I was wrapping up the Q1 data poll. They weren't quite ready yet. And even though it's brand new, just released in March, it's already at spot number 15 in market cap, which is incredibly impressive. So good job to Cosmos Atom in terms of having some heat right out the gate in terms of attention and obviously funding flowing into your project. So that's really good. The other one that got added to the top 25 market cap, but not quite as high up, so to speak, is Chainlink at space number 24. And Bitcoin Gold, which over the past couple of years, I've noticed Bitcoin Gold tend to fluctuate in and out of the top 25. And at the time of this data poll, it was currently back in the top 25 at spot number 25. Now that being said, there were some projects that I wanted to key in on that have been in the top 25 off and on for the past few quarters that are currently no longer in the top 25, but again, that's subject to change. The first one was Crypto.com chain, which is formerly Monaco Card. They rebranded when they felt all cool about themselves for buying the domain Crypto.com. I don't know how much they paid for that domain, probably a lot of money. So they're trying to capitalize on that and take advantage of it. So Crypto.com chain at the time of the data poll was number 26. Waves, which I kind of like Waves from what I know of it. But anyways, they were number 37 at the time of this data poll, yet they were in the top 25 last quarter. So Waves is out of the top 25, VeChain is out of the top 25 at number 28, Dogecoin was at number 29, and Lisk was at number 35. So goodbye to them, at least for this quarter. Let's see. That being said, let's move into our exchange data. Now, for those of you who might be new to these videos, the exchange data I think is really important because I take the top 25 projects and I evaluate how many exchanges they are listed on in total. So that being said, and all of this data is available on my website. I will go ahead and post it in the description section. Like if you want to actually just go through cell by cell and read how they're all stacking up next to each other, I'll put that there. It's a lot more explicit. Again, this is me reading between the lines, between the cells. And as far as exchanges go, I believe it's important data to evaluate because the more exchanges that a project is listed on, the more opportunities there are for funding to find this project. And therefore, I think it's a pretty good indicator of a healthy project that's going to have a lot of funding because there's access for it because they're listed on a lot of exchanges. I'm just going to stretch because I'm on the floor. Anyways, as far as some interesting things on the exchange data this quarter was the fact that, not a big surprise, but there were more exchanges in totality that I was counting through. Because within the last couple of months, there's been a huge influx of excitement back into the cryptocurrency market. And I think because of this, there are more exchanges cropping up trying to take advantage of the extra money that exists. So there's a lot more exchanges as businesses that are existing. I would say about 20 to 30 more exchanges in general on average that I was counting through. That being said, there are 7 projects now, which is actually quite a few that are in my quote unquote A+ range, and A+ indicates that they're listed on 100 or more exchanges. So 7 projects, and for perspective, last quarter, there were only 3 projects that were listed on 100 or more exchanges, and this quarter there are 7. So obviously, there's, part of that is due to the fact that in general there are more exchanges, but part of that is due to the fact that I think some of these projects in the top 25 are scaling and doing that much better on this metric. Litecoin, as usual, is listed on the most exchanges. And it's ironic because a lot of these exchanges have Bit in the name to kind of capitalize on the goodwill of Bitcoin. Yet, even though a lot of them have Bit in the name and Bitcoin, most people would think would be listed on the most number of exchanges, almost consistently is not. Litecoin is usually the one that every quarter I evaluate is listed on the most exchanges. That being said, Bitcoin was actually in, guess what, 7th place. There are 6 other projects that are listed on more exchanges than Bitcoin. In order of highest is Litecoin, then Ripple, Ethereum, EOS, Bitcoin Cash, and Dash. So Bitcoin Cash, Dash, EOS, Ethereum, Ripple, all of those are listed on more exchanges than Bitcoin, which kind of blows my mind a little bit, but it is what it is. The data speaks for itself. Again, you can check it out or count it out for your own eyes. At each link to or each page that I evaluate the data on, I explain how I gather the data, so you can even audit me. I actually would appreciate having a second set of eyes on this. So that being said, as far as exchanges go, Ethereum was one of the biggest gainers in terms of the number of exchanges it got listed on, because I evaluate like the number, you can see the percentage gains, but I don't list the numbers. So Ethereum added over 20 new exchanges that it's listed on, so good job Ethereum. IOTA was actually the biggest loser, getting delisted off of a couple of exchanges. That happens from time to time, but the fact that given the wave of what's going on in the markets, IOTA managed to get delisted is not the best for that project. Maker got listed on 12 new exchanges, which was a 75% increase for them, so good job Maker. Tezos had a 114% increase for them relative to where they were at last quarter, by adding 8 new exchanges that they're listed on. So good job, Tezos. It's all relative. And then even though, this was interesting, even though Cosmos is brand new to the scene and it usually takes a decent amount of time for a project to get enough notoriety and clout behind it for major exchanges to want to list it, that's not the case for Cosmos, because Cosmos is already being listed on some big name exchanges. So again, good job Cosmos for just being hot out the gates right now. Okay, so that's our exchange data, platform data. I think this is really interesting to evaluate, but I'm actually going to save this for the end. So we'll scroll back up to platform data. Let's move into repository data and take a sip of my green tea with hot chocolate in it. Okay. Whew. Yes. So I believe the repository data is important to go over because it is a hub, a mecca of open source development for a lot of computer science nerds out there. And it's a really good indicator, I believe, of the health of a project, because most of these cryptocurrency projects, if not all of them, are developed and have GitHub repositories or developed in an open source manner, which means developers from all around the world, assuming they have access to the internet and to this website, can go on and develop and push code and help foster the growth and literally development of all of these projects, which I think is really important. And the way that GitHub works is I evaluate 2 things in the data. I evaluate the number of commits, because I think that is a really good indicator of how much activity, development activity, is flooding into these GitHub accounts, as well as the number of stars, because for all of the activity that's happening on these accounts, the stars are the developers that are like, hey, we really like this repository, this project, we're gonna star it. Or in the case of something I'll get to in detail a little bit later, sooner than later actually, I think there are some projects out there that are taking advantage of the stars, because even though there's not a lot of development actually happening on these projects, there's not a lot of commits happening in these repositories, there's still a lot of stars, which to me seems a little bit fishy, and potentially like there might be a ploy for these projects to just be promoting people to just go out and star their repositories, not because it's actually based on developers that really value the code that they're going through and the project that they're actually developing on. So that being said, the two that were like that have not very many commits relative to the amount of stars they have are Neo and Binance. So Neo and Binance, there's not actually a lot of action happening on it, minus people going in and starring it, which again to me seems a little bit fishy. That being said, there are some projects that I will call the humble hard workers that I feel are in the opposite boat. There's actually a lot of work and development happening there, but there's not as many stars relatively speaking. So that can mean one of two things: that again, there's a lot of really hard work and the people that are developing on it just aren't as keen to star a repository, or the fact that maybe the people that are working on it don't like it, yet somehow they're still working on it. So anyways, those projects, our humble hard workers, we'll call them, are Litecoin, Cardano, Dash, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, and Bitcoin Gold. So, and again, this also could be an indicator as I look at Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision of maybe there is a concentration of a few developers who like and star the repository, who are contributing a lot of code rather than a diverse number of developers who are contributing a lot of code. So again, that's Litecoin, Cardano, Dash, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, and Bitcoin Gold. As far as other things to key in on with repositories, I would say Lisk was our highest gainer. It is our highest gainer, adding almost 8,000 new commits. So there's a lot of activity happening in Lisk, so good job Lisk. Bitcoin Cash moved repositories, which I think is largely helping be responsible for its gains of over 103%. So in terms of percent gains in total activity points being the summation of each project's commits and stars. Bitcoin Cash was the highest gainer of all projects at 103%, but again, they move repositories. I don't know why. If you do, please leave a comment. I'm kind of curious, but haven't had a chance to dive into that yet. There's not much new activity. This was something good to note. There's not a lot of new activity, relatively speaking, on Ripple, Ethereum Classic, and NEM, which Ethereum Classic we'll get into a little bit more later when we go through the platform size data. Ethereum Classic is struggling so hard the past few quarters. I feel like I've been holding up like survival flares for it, like pretty explicitly in these videos. And I know it even had a hack not too long ago. It has 0 projects listed on it now that are developed on it in terms of decentralized applications, dApps, which is what it's designed to do, just like Ethereum, but there's none on there. And relatively speaking, Ethereum has like, what did Ethereum have? Like 2,000 or something? Ethereum has 1,200 listed on it. Ethereum Classic has none, yet Ethereum Classic still ends up in the top 25 market cap every time I run this data, and I have a feeling it's by virtue of the goodwill of the name alone. So if Ethereum Classic was just called Classic and people didn't associate it with Ethereum, and it was sucking this hard, all due respect, in terms of not having projects listed on it or not even having much development happen in its repository, I can guarantee you it wouldn't be listed in the top 25. Anyways, I can't guarantee you, that is my speculation, to be perfectly honest though. But Ethereum Classic got put on my personal chopping block too, actually. I didn't have too much of it, but I just sold some recently because I'm like, this shit's way overvalued, but that's a story for another time. Now moving from repository GitHub info to Twitter and Reddit data. I think it's quasi-obvious, but I feel like evaluating the Twitter and Reddit data is a good idea because they are a pretty good indicator of social media related hype, like people in the communities that are interested in it, maybe outside of developers, but think it's a really cool project and therefore probably has a decent amount of investment. Therefore, when it comes to evaluating them, I think Twitter and Reddit data are good pieces to evaluate, good metrics to evaluate. That being said, as far as interesting stuff with the Twitter data, Zcash's account got moved. This is another one where if you know anything about it, please let me know. I'm not sure if it got deleted, got moved, because the closest account to the Zcash account now that I could find has 93% fewer followers than the old one I evaluated did. So it's hard to give reliable data when I'm not sure where the old account is that was doing much better. The biggest percent gainer, but again, this is already listed, was Maker. So good job, Maker. They gained 14.6% more Twitter followers. The biggest number gains goes to Binance with almost 50,000 new followers. And Binance now has more Twitter followers than Bitcoin. For some perspective, Binance has almost a million. At the time of this data poll, they had 986,000 Twitter followers. Bitcoin had 943,000 and some change. Like that's incredible considering, and like as much as I'm impressed by Cosmos Atom coming on the scene really hot, like Binance has really been doing a good job of that too. Again, there's not a lot of development happening in their GitHub, but as far as marketing goes, they're apparently killing it because they have a lot of stars in their GitHub repository, even though there's not a lot of commits, and they have over 50,000 new Twitter followers just within the last quarter alone. So that's impressive. Bitcoin, in terms of perspective, so Binance added 50,000. Guess how many new Twitter followers numbers-wise Bitcoin added? Only 13,247. So Bitcoin's got to step its game up. It's slipping a little bit in Twitter followers. And even though it's not relatively common for projects to lose followers, it does happen almost every quarter, and this quarter, not surprisingly, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, Bitcoin SV lost a few followers, IOTA lost a few followers, and Dash lost a few followers. So, womp womp womp. Reddit, as far as social media goes, we'll also talk about Reddit. Reddit is still, Bitcoin's still killing it in the Reddit area because, let's see, I actually just went off of a page that I wanted. The Bitcoin forum, so apparently Binance is saying like, hey, follow us on Twitter, but they're not being like, hey, join our Reddit forum, at least not as hard, because Binance is like 14th place in terms of the number of Reddit forum members that they have at like 52,000, almost 53,000, but Bitcoin is still holding it strong. Our Bitcoin is still holding it strong at over 1 million now. So this was the first quarter where Bitcoin actually reached over 1 million Reddit forum members, so good job, Bitcoin. And the next highest was Ethereum at 438,000, almost 439,000. So Bitcoin has a significantly higher number of Reddit forum members than any other project, because Ethereum was in second place at less than half of what Bitcoin has. So again, as far as Reddit goes, good job, Bitcoin. Neo gained almost 10,000 new forum members, so Neo did pretty well. Ethereum gained 6,000 new forum members, which is pretty good, relatively speaking, with the other projects. NEM is the only project, because as rare as it is for people to unfollow projects on Twitter, it's even more rare for them to leave a forum that they follow on Reddit, yet NEM managed to do that by losing a few forum members. So, but NEM was not doing so hot on that metric, and again, relative to the repository activity, not a lot of repository activity on NEM, and people are leaving their Reddit. So they're kind of struggling the most, along with Ethereum Classic, which I say every freaking time. But that brings me to the last bit of data that I will talk about, which is the platform size data. And this is outside of evaluating the top 25 market cap, because of all of the cryptocurrency projects that are listed on coinmarketcap.com, hundreds on hundreds on hundreds, probably into thousands now. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with this influx of interest and capital happening. Of all of those, there are only 23 that are considered to be platforms. And the best example of this, the most prime example of this, is Ethereum is kind of the OG, where you have smart contracts and you have people building decentralized applications and tokens on top of the Ethereum blockchain, the Ethereum platform. So there are, along with Ethereum, there are 22 other platforms that exist, and I like to just evaluate them relative to each other each quarter also to see how they're doing, because every single quarter, I mean, the story doesn't really change. Ethereum is just blowing them all out of the water, but there are some more interesting notes to make than others. There are actually 2 platforms that got added to this list. So there were previously like 21, now there's 23. Binance Coin and Komodo are now 2 platforms that are being evaluated in this in terms of the number of projects that are listed on them. Ethereum, in terms of the highest number gainers and percent gainers, Ethereum by far did the best. It added 90 new projects just in the last quarter, which now has, at the time of this data poll, over 1,213 projects listed on it. So bravo, Ethereum, because the next highest under you at second place is Neo at 28. So you have 28 projects listed on Neo and over 1,200 listed on Ethereum. Not even a close comparison. 7 platforms, so the platform model is not doing as well in general as a whole because 7 platforms actually lost projects off of their platform instead of gained projects. 9 platforms didn't change at all, stayed the same, had the same number of projects listed on them as they did in Q1, and 6 projects, only 6 projects, actually added some 6 platforms actually added some projects onto their platform, onto their blockchain, and some of those included Stellar, who added 8 new projects. So good job, Stellar. That's pretty good, relatively speaking. And EOS added 4, so not bad. Again, relatively speaking, Ethereum's still doing the best. Omni lost ground for a second straight quarter. So they went from 9 tokens on their platform in Q1 to 7, and then in Q2 they went from 7 platforms to 4. So they're slipping the hardest relative to the last couple of quarters. And NXT and Ethereum Classic no longer have any tokens listed on them. None. So when you see NXT, when you see Ethereum Classic, for the business model that they're trying to run, they're not doing a great job of it because there's no projects on there, there's no extra tokens on there. Decide for yourself what you want to do with that. And that being said, that is the data for quarter 2 of 2019. I'll see you in quarter 3. And in the meantime, if you are coming to this video not from my website, because this will be mainly embedded in my website, but if you're not coming to it from my website, go to the description section and I will put links to each one of these metrics so you can actually see the data for yourself and have it hopefully be helpful to you in your process of evaluating different cryptocurrencies.